Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of Yoml. This is the Year of Magical Learning podcast. We are going to do 229, episode 229, a part 4 of 5 reflections on uh, our favorite book, The Happiness Hypothesis.
Yeah, let's do this one. So this is part 4 of 5, reflection 4 of 5 of the happiness hypothesis. And just a quick recap. This is a book about 10 great ideas, and each chapter kind of builds on himself of, as it builds toward, his happiness hypothesis. And it's about ideas that have been discovered throughout civilizations and things that may have led to human flourishing. And Jonathan Haidt, great author, it's a great book. We loved it. That's why we wrote a 5-part reflection for it. This one is part 4. So it's the reflection title of this one is disgust, when you might be on to a new core value to explore. So honestly, in retrospect, I can't believe it took me this long in this journey to figure this out. But I mean, I did. And that was when I was writing this reflection and when I was, kind of going through this stage of it. Like, I remember reading when I first read The Happiness Hypothesis, the chapter on disgust was, for me, eye-opening. Do you remember that section of the book when he talks about, like, how disgust has influenced, culture and humanity throughout civilizations, throughout the, antiquity. I mean, like, it's stuff that, like, naturally disgusts us. We end up building cultures around and rules and norms around, things like religions, and, you shouldn't eat meat, at certain places. And these, like, these things are like bacterial infections and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of this, like, kosher, I mean, there's a lot of rules that were put in place around society, because of things that were disgust inducing, for us, even things like I don't know. I mean, a lot of cultural things have been built throughout antiquity, based off of, that feeling of disgust. And as I was kind of, going through that section of the book, it was interesting. I felt like I learned something from it, but then as it marinated and sat more and more, longer and longer with me over time, I think I started to understand this concept a little bit better. And obviously, this whole journey is about, values and purpose and overcoming loss to find, happiness in my own life, and obviously, and how that extrapolates out into what you and I do together. So for me, this is where this reflection comes in around discuss and when you may be onto a new core value. So one of the things that we discovered really early on in this whole journey, it was a big light bulb moment, is there's just nothing more natural and easy to a beaver must dam, right? Let's just call it a beaver must dam conversation. When you're doing something that just naturally aligns to what you how you feel, and brings this energy and emotions out of you, and your elephant can go flourish and romp around in the in the baths and the fields and whatever, and just like do its elephant thing, and there's just something magical about that, right? And those are the activities that we all need to look for that equate to a beaver must dam, right? Because they just, whatever you're doing, for whatever reason, your elephant just really loves it. And that's an element and an activity you should be looking into through, like, reflective writing or thought or meditation or whatever, and however you want to, like, think through these things and try to get the stuff out of you to really diagnose the source code as to, okay, why do I feel this way when I don't know, for instance, for me, play tennis, right? So tennis is something that my elephant just loves. I was playing it earlier today, and it always never ceases to fail me how easy it is for me to slip into a flow state playing tennis, and all the questions and curiosities that jump into my head as I'm playing a match or playing with a friend, or I'm trying out a new shot, or I'm trying to keep my shit together in a match, because I'm yelling at myself, and I'm balancing, being happy, but at the same time wanting to push and challenge myself and be hard, and endure and not quitting, but all these things that are going on in my head in the middle of a match, and it just, for whatever reason, it just makes me come alive, and for me, as I, like, look into that side of the tennis equation, and the activities that a beaver must dam activity, where it just naturally aligns to everything, you can really start to unpack the source code of a lot of those, why those emotions are bringing that out in your elephant. So for me, in this journey, I unpacked, through a lot of reflection and writing, the things that I love about tennis would be, it's challenging, it's learning, it's humility, it's not doing it alone because I'm always with an opponent, and they're a friend and a foe at the same time. It's playing and just having fun and being outside. It's enduring, and when you want to quit, but knowing that this is something that really does align, and keep pushing, and balance and all these things, right? So like an activity that I love, elephant's happy, identify the source code and the why behind it all, and you get these great values out of it, right? Like that's boom, done. So for me and for you, I think, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but for both of us in this journey, that was kind of where the basis of where we started this whole journey at. It's like, hey, let's do the stuff we love to do. Let's figure out why we love to do it, and then let's help other people to do that together as well, and form an ecosystem around all that stuff. And then that's that's clubbing, right? But this book, as it marinated slowly over time, I started to have some activities that I would every once in a while would spring up in my life, where I would go, I don't know why, but I get that like weird pit. You ever get that weird pit feeling in pit in your stomach, where you're just like, something doesn't feel right, where you're like, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but something that I just did felt weird. It didn't feel like I don't know if it was good. I don't know if it was bad, but like it didn't feel right. You know what I'm talking about? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Okay. So like that kept happening to me about midway through this journey. And I first started, I would go back and do what I always had done, which is, let me go run this through my core values filter and figure out, does it violate my values? Does it violate my mission? Does it violate my purpose? And I would, and every single time I would go, no, 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 no. And I'm like, well, then why do I still have this fucking feeling? It's like, why do I still feel like something is missing, where I'm not getting this, and it's not a good feeling. I was like, what is this? So I kept thinking about it. And it was, I went back to this concept of disgust, and there were certain things that I was, doing as I started to unpack it, that I was like, I think that just disgusts me. Like, I don't know why I did that. That just, I felt disgusted by myself, almost in a little bit of ways. And for instance, like, we'll go back to the tennis analogy, or example, like all those great things that I just talked about in tennis. There's sometimes when like, I never, ever try to make my opponent feel bad ever. I don't care if I'm beating them or losing to them ever. I would never do that, like, ever, and if I did, it would be completely, purely accidental. But sometimes, like when I'm in a tight match, like, things are, the stress is ratcheted up, and there's a really close call, like on a line call or something like that, where it's questionable. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, like in my own brain, I'm like, was that in? Was that out? I don't know. And I called it out. In the heat of the moment, I called it out or something like that. And then as I start to think about it, like I'm like, was that out? Why did I call that in? Like, like I don't know. Like, I mean, and now I'm starting to like question my own self, and I'm like, and then by the end of the match is over, that's all I can think about. I'm like, what, did I call that ball out when it should have been in? Like, and then I'm like, I feel bad. I honestly, I feel disgusted by myself. Then I'll go look through my core values and my mission, and my purpose, and I'll be like, what does this? Why do I feel like this? Like, I don't know. Like, and like, it doesn't violate any of these things. And I'm like, what is this fucking feeling? So I kept like, thinking about this. And this is where I started to lean into the idea of like, the stuff that, the other end of the balance, right? The balance equation, the polarity of life and all that other stuff we've learned, when you're on this side of the polarity of the good side of everything, it's easy, right? But you can also find values in the polarity on the other side, right? And the bad side, the shit that disgusts you. So as I started to unpack this even more and more and more, I started to realize, I added a new core value to my list about 3/4 of the way through this journey. It's called integrity. It officially made it on from the trying it out list into my core values list of like, I don't like that feeling of disgust when I feel like maybe I just lied to somebody, and I didn't mean to. It wasn't intentional. Like, my elephant just did it, and now I'm like, I kind of am disgusted with myself. My writer is like, I'm disgusted with you, writer. You know, my writer is like, I'm disgusted with you, elephant. You know, and like that was why I added integrity into my core values list. Because there's just certain things that maybe don't technically violate any of my values or my purpose or my mission, but also at the same time it doesn't feel right. There's something that doesn't sit well, you know. So like that's where integrity came into play, and that's why the title is called, you know, disgust when you may be onto a new core value. So the moral of the story is when you're looking for your understanding your values and you're understanding your elephant better, there's emotions on both sides of the spectrum. There's emotions on the good side, there's emotions on the bad side, and everything in between. So like, don't discard bad feeling emotions, like, because there could be really valuable values that can be unearthed there that you can leverage to help, you know, keep you on the path that you want to be on towards your own, you know, meaningful work and meaningful relationships. So yeah, I'll pause there. Love to get your thoughts.
Right. So I think, you know, you hit it on the head while saying this is the beaver must dam discussion.
Yeah.
And like, you know, to me, like we have a set of core values, and we don't know what it is until we explore and discover. And you say, well, I have this 5 core values, and I'm feeling this disgust. I look through my 4 or 5 core values, and it doesn't violate any of them, but I still feel disgust. That means
Right.
you're missing one core, at least one
Missing
more core
something.
value that's
Right.
supposed to be on the list that you violated. So
Right.
when you violate your core value, you will feel the disgust,
Exactly.
right? Because then you may have 10, right?
Right.
And you say I only know 5, so you say, hey, 5 is what I'm using as my compass. But then I feel disgust, but it doesn't violate any of the 5. It's because something else, some other values is missing from that list.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, it's like if I'm a beaver, right? I like water, but you put me, you asked me to go and I guess put my hand into some kind of an ant mound or whatever, right?
Right.
It doesn't violate any of the value of a beaver core values per se. You know, let's say water, location,
Right.
having the steel, like the wood to chop down and to build my dam. But when I put my paw into the end mount, right? It's not gonna feel good. It's gonna feel
Right.
disgusting because I'm gonna get, you know, my hand 1,000 times bitten by the ant. So
Shouldn't be
stuff
there.
like that. You know, it say, well, the values that I think I know, it doesn't violate it, but that means doesn't mean I can do the other stuff. That means that the other core value is still missing. So anytime that you go, you have, because essentially, like you were saying, if you're playing tennis and you never want to make the other person feel bad because that's the way you play, and you constantly say, well, is it out? You start immediately to feel remorse.
Oh, immediately. I mean, it's like I almost want to just stop the point and go, you know what, you can have that point. Like, I mean, like even you just can't do that in tennis. Well, that's not true. You can do it in tennis. It just is never done where you're like 2 points down the road and you're like, you know what, that was your point. Like, you know, like it's just like I've never seen that happen ever in my tennis playing career. But I almost want to make that a thing, you know, because it's like I don't care enough like about you know this random, you know, even if it's a competitive league match or something like that, like I don't care enough about that to violate that. You know what I mean? Where I walk away from that interaction with this person and they go, man, Chris is a cheater. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he may have beat me. He's good. He seems like a nice guy, but
I
like he's
mean, the thing
a
is,
cheater. You know?
I mean, it doesn't matter. The matter of fact is that you have a core values that want to be true to. Meaning, even if the other person didn't think that you're a cheater, you don't want to even have give any evidence that you're a cheater.
Right.
So I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I mean, it doesn't matter the outcome of the game or anything like that. It's just that particular shot. Even if you lost the match, but you gain that point, you still feel remorse because it violates your integrity core value. You're gonna feel bad, and it's going to like kind of like time suck. Because
You
you're focusing on the remorse other than playing tennis. You won't
You want to
you
know
won't
what
have a
happens?
happy feeling.
You want
What?
to know what happens when this happens? Like for the next like 2 games, I almost like unconsciously dump the games
Hmm.
to like get. I mean, I literally I'm like I don't want to win these next points. Like and like I end up losing games a lot. Like if this scenario ever plays out, and it's probably almost like an unconscious thing where my elephant can't even like it's almost like I want to hit it into the net or I want to just make errors all over the place or something like that because I'm like, look, that that was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like my elephant like can't even think about doing other stuff anymore. It's like that's all it fixated on. And I mean it happens almost
Exactly.
every time. It's like
Exactly.
right.
I mean, that's exactly what remorse does. It tells you, hey, I did something that is violating against my values, and you are going to be completely like taken away by that. All your focus is pay attention to the remorse feeling, and you can't shake it. You
Hmm?
just can't shake the feeling of this is something. It is not me. I did something that is not me,
Right.
and you completely being led away from focusing on your game and a lot of times you're gonna throw away the game, you're gonna do things, and your thinking is completely yanked, right?
Yeah.
Your
My
focus and
rider my
attention.
rider's full on like in control of my elephant at that point in time because my rider's going, what the fuck did you just do, elephant? You know what I mean? Like the rider's like, wait a minute, all right, pause. Like this. What the fuck did you just do? And the elephant's like, what? What did I do? Like, and the rider's like, come on, man, come on. Like
No,
what?
no, I think it's the elephant that does that. That's most of it, because
No, no. The elephant gives you the
the
emotion to
elephant
the
is the
rider.
one that outbursts, right? Because it instinctively knows that, but it's also so what because the thing is the elephant is what you cannot control. You cannot control
Right.
the elephant at all. So let's say the elephant outbursts something, and then the rider said, "Hey, look, elephant, you outburst. That was not you." And then I would say, "Oh yeah, you're right. Fuck, I did something wrong." And so the elephant is starting to doubt itself. That's why it couldn't
Yeah,
focus,
that's true.
right?
That's true.
So the
Yeah.
attention, so the rider said, "Okay, that's okay. We live and we learn. Let's move back." The elephant couldn't. Elephant is still,
Yeah.
well, I did something wrong. I need to fix it and compensate it. I feel bad. So the thing is, in the remorse phase, you can't really control your emotions,
Yeah.
because
That's true.
whatever you do, for whatever amount of period that you go through. Sometimes, a couple hours, sometimes, it's a day, sometimes it's a week, depending on how your elephant is processing it. Like I said, you can't control the feeling of remorse. When you did something that you know was bad,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You have this remorse feeling and you can't shake it. That means that the rider has no control,
Yeah.
has no control over it, because the elephant realizes it did something wrong, right? Then it's going to sit there and it's going to process that. And sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it takes hours, sometimes it takes weeks, depending on the elephant character, and also depending on the kind of remorse that it thinks it needs to do.
Right.
So the more uh, you know the I guess the more impactful the event, the longer the remorse period.
Yeah.
You know.
For sure. I mean, there's a story that we'll do in the future, because as I added integrity to my core values, around this time of the journey, um, uh, it was it was probably a few months after this where I was playing in an industrial league match that I do on like Saturday mornings, and I was in a really 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 close match with this guy. I had started off up. These are like weird timed matches, so you play
Mhm.
for an hour and a half. They're not like full sets. You just play as many games as you can during the time, and then whoever's up by more than a break or not, or on serve. If you're on serve, you tie. If you're up a break, or beyond, you win. That's how it's scored on these things.
Mm.
And I had started off this match up. I think it was up like 8-1, which is like in these kind of matches, that's almost like insurmountable. Like, I mean, you can't even come back from it, right? Like,
Mhm.
but I also knew maybe it was like 8-2, but I also knew it was the guy that I was playing. He was good, and I was like, he was really just missing a lot of shots, and I was like, if he starts if he starts to get his shit together, like I mean, I was like, this could easily flip, you know. And sure shit, like 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later after that, at that point in time, I found myself it was 8-7 now, in the match, and we only had like, I don't know, 20 minutes left of this timed match, and it was 30-40, so meaning I was down in a service game, so I was down 30-40. So if he won the next point, he would break serve and we would be tied. And the ball, he had a really really close shot down the line. I called it out, and because I thought it was out, but it was really really close, like, and he gave one of those, sure about that one, and I was like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure about it, to be honest with you. But like, I mean, from where I saw it, I was like, I thought it was out, but we don't have like, eagle eye court vision, shit on these courts. But like, I mean, if he was staring right down the line, it may have been in. I don't know, and I felt awful because I ended up winning that game. So now I was up 9-7, and then I won the next 3 games and I ended up winning 12-7. But like, that was a hugely pivotal point in that match. Like, if he would have won that point, we would have been now tied. He would have completed his comeback, and now we would have been back to even with a few, and I could not get that out of my head the rest of the entire match. So much so that this is where the integrity core value comes into play. This is why I was so glad that I've added this stuff into my core values, going forward. Because after that match, I couldn't get out of my head. I drove home from the match, and I was like, man, that sucked. I was like, I mean, I felt really bad. I was like, that was a really fun match. The guy was playing well, and he's a good guy. Like, and I was like, I don't want to be like that, and I couldn't get it out of my head. I was just sitting there. I made breakfast when I got back home because it was like an early Saturday morning. I was eating, like a brunch with my wife and my and Luca, and I'm just sitting there in my chair, and I could not get it out of my head. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I don't care. Like, this guy had exchanged numbers with me. I'd never met him before. This guy had exchanged numbers with me after the matches. He was like, man, you're really good. I'd love to play you sometime. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, let's get together or whatever. So I ended up texting him, like 3 hours after this match was over. And I was like, man, I'm so sorry about that call. I was like, I feel really, really bad. Like, that was a pivotal point in the match. Like, I can't get my head thinking about it, stop thinking about it. And he was, he immediately responded. He's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. He was like, it was probably out. I don't know. I have bad eyesight. Anyway, but either way, like, I felt relieved. I felt purged.
Right,
I was
because
like,
you satisfy that core value. The core
right.
value is, I want to be clear on where we stand, regardless of what happened. We won or you lost, but you let another person know, like, this is where I stand, and I don't want you to have any kind of miscommunication or I guess misbelief in what you see. And
Right.
so that's part of the integrity core value. It's to me, it may not be anything. It just that's the way that you behave, right?
Right.
Because it doesn't really matter whether it's advantageous or disadvantageous and like that. It's just, for me, it's like, it's probably gonna make me have a very nice, peaceful day, to be honorable, and do the things I should be doing, and then to do the things that I need to do to compensate for the fact that I feel bad, right? And so for me, it takes so much energy to go against the principle or the core value that you have. I mean, it's not like I was born to this world and I say, well, for me, I think I will have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You don't, you don't get to do that. You just you've been given a certain set, whether whether that's something you want or you don't. You still
Right.
have that set. It's just easier for you to allow that particular set of core values to express versus not. If you violate it, you're gonna have to contain it. It's like fire. You mean when you light it up, it's going to start activate to burn. It's gonna. I mean, in order for you to not express it, you have to like use energy and power to contain it, and
Right.
that takes a lot of energy. So, for that's why a lot of times, because you think about it, to me, I mean, in a lot of ways, being honest is a disadvantage because most people are not honest with you, and they use it to their advantage, and
Mhm.
um they use it to put leverage on you, But
Right.
at the same time, I mean, I know that, It's not like I'm dumb that I don't know, but I don't really care because to me it's not worth it.
Right.
It's not worth it to say, well, I'm not gonna let this person know how I think, how whatever. I tell you as I see it, and I don't hold anything. But at the same time, because I'm very honest, a lot of time whatever I know is I know a lot of it because I don't spend my time trying to cover up, the honesty, right? So I have more time to focus on my skills and my art. So if you were
Right.
to like, even if I tell you how to code, I can teach you everything how to code, but you can't out code me. You just can't.
Mhm.
Like, just like when you play tennis, right? You can say, well, I this is how I do my backhand, this is how I do my forehand, this is how I do my serve, this is how I
Right.
kind of like defend the
Yeah.
ground or whatever. You can give them all the secrets away, but no one can outperform you on the court because you are so good at focusing on the art versus trying to focus on containing. Let's say I'm gonna be this sly person. Not gonna let people in on the secrets of play or whatever, the trick shots or whatever, right? So you rely on these trick shots, and
Right.
so a lot of time because if you do that, you don't have the time because you basically have to split your time and attention to different things. So if you focus on doing something else, then there's less time to focus on the art. Therefore, you need to rely on tricks to win. But if I don't rely on the art of trying to I guess mislead my opponent, then they have to beat me the real way, which is you have to beat
Right.
me, have to be better than me in my skills to beat me,
Yeah,
and that's
I'll tell you
truly
my weaknesses. Do that. Do this. Like, here, this is how you beat me. Go ahead and try that because it'll make me better. You know what I mean?
because
Like,
then
I know how
eventually
to craft,
somebody's gonna find out. But that
right.
means
It's
that when they found out, and I don't have the ability to I don't have enough skills to beat you in that, I'm gonna lose anyway, regardless.
right. Yeah, no, it's actually it's funny you just mentioned that. I kind of chuckled, in my head when you were talking about that. Uh, just earlier today, I was playing a tennis match against a friend of mine, and we were playing at the courts down the street from me. It's like I don't know, a 2 minute walk, from my house kind of thing.
Hmm.
Those courts also happen to be they're public courts, but they also happen to be where the local Catholic high school uses for their home courts for because they don't have courts at their high school because they're small Catholic high schools. So that's where they practice and that's where they play their home matches and stuff like that. I forgot that it's girls tennis season here in Indiana. They do the
Hmm.
springtime, so they're just now kind of doing their warm ups and practicing and things like that. And luckily, there's 8 courts down there, and they were only using like 6 of them or something like that. So my buddy and I were able to go play while they were practicing and stuff. So we were playing right next to these girls that were practicing and doing drills and things like that. And there was you looked at like my friend and I when we were playing, people stop when they walk by in the park and they're like, man, you guys are really good at tennis, and then I like and that it's cool. Like, I mean, we are pretty good at tennis,
Hmm.
and then I look over to the courts next to me and I'm watching these girls learn, and I had that exact thought today where I was like, I could walk over, they could watch us play the entire time, they could come over, they could ask me, how do you guys do it, how do you do this, and I watched them hit the ball, and I'm like, oh man, all I got to do is do this and this, and like I want to go over there and like help them, but at the same time, I'm like they just there's no way that I can actually get out of my head and like a 2 minute conversation with this person of like how to turn their insanely newbie like shots that they're hitting on the court next to me into anything that will resemble
Hmm.
anything. We're playing a different game. Like, I mean, literally, it's like a full different game. And like the ATP level tennis players, they're playing a full different game than my friend and I are playing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like it's I to your point, like I could walk up to Novak Djokovic and I could say, teach me all the secrets of what you do, and it would still take me probably 5 years to even like unlock one of those little secrets and actually be able to apply it into my life. These are things that just they're hard fought on the battlefield, right? I mean, you gotta go live life and figure it out and do the stuff that you really like to do and avoid the shit that really makes you feel like shit. Like
Right. Right. I
that's
mean, so it reminds me of the saying that Bruce Lee said, I don't fear the guy who practiced 1,000 kicks once. I fear the guy who practiced one kick 1,000 times.
that's
So
true.
that's the thing is, I mean, you can teach, you can give your opponents any secrets, any tricks. They cannot beat you because the elephant isn't trained.
Hmm.
I mean, you cannot do it. So that means that that's what I'm saying is, that's what I'm saying is, when you have the time, right? So you have this time frame, you can say, well, I'm going to learn 1,000 kicks because you're greedy, but you're strategic, right? I have so many tricks. I have 1,000 fucking kicks. But the thing is, you can't execute any of them. That's the and Bruce Lee say, I don't fear the guy that learns 1,000 kicks. I fear the guy who learned one kick 1,000 times, right? So that's is the elephant who's trained. So that's what that's the beauty of having the ability to use your time in a laser focused manner. When you don't have to worry about containing your core values, it allows you the time to focus on your art. But if you are violating your core value, you have this inflamed, this bursting of disgust or whatever feeling, and that feeling is going to start to absorb the energy from your surrounding, and you have to contain it. It takes energy to contain it, and because it's violating that core values, it's going to suck the energy out. Like I told you, you can't really tell your elephant, say, hey, don't think about this remorse anymore. For the next hour or so, your mind is completely drowned in that thought of remorse. You don't focus on playing tennis anymore. So basically, it sucks it away regardless of whether you want to or not. So that's what I'm saying is that time has been taken away from your focus on your art. Right? So that means that in all of us, we have a very I guess time exchange. You have to exchange your time for something. But if you allow your core values to express itself, it doesn't suck the energy. It doesn't suck the attention. It let you be who you're supposed to be. Therefore, whatever you do, your time is there. Your focus, your attention, your time is focused on that one thing, the laser focus attention. That's the beauty of having the ability. If I have, for whatever reason, I have the gene that makes me want to be honest and have integrity, and if I were to be that, then it takes zero energy. But if I were to not be it, it takes energy to lie, to pretend, and to keep my story straight, right? And that takes the energy itself. So what else? What other energy? What other capacity in terms of the attention and the time for me to focus on doing whatever that's what I'm doing, like maybe building dams like a beaver or coding like a programmer or whatever the case may be. I don't have that time, so my skill isn't any good because I didn't have my elephant isn't training as much as I should be training.
Right. Agreed.
So that's what I'm saying. You have to let your emotion be the omen, be the guide to say, okay, is this a core values that I'm missing from my tool belt that I'm supposed to have that I didn't discover yet, I didn't realize yet? Because you cannot ignore something. You say, well, I have my core values already. Well, the thing is, how do you know it's 5? How do you know it's 8? Right? So there may be a situation where you may have more than that, and when you discover them, and that you have to listen to the emotion. The emotion is telling you something because it is violating it, because there's certain core values that you and I, we don't give a shit.
Right. It's a signal, right? Like we talked about, it's like, turn the TV on, make sure it's on the right channel, see what it's saying, because it's like, because I know what it's saying when I was given that example of the sentence. This concept of the elephant and the rider, like the more and more that we talk about it, I feel like besides a beaver must dam, like I feel like this might be one of probably the things that we mentioned most throughout this entire journey. And not like, so when you think of like Daniel Kahneman and thinking fast and thinking slow, or system 1, system 2, or whatever he wants to call it, and in the book, oh my gosh, the inner game of tennis, they call it system 2 and system 1, where they flip it, where system 2 is like your and automatic
Mhm.
system, and your system 1 is your rider, well, whatever. Either way, for whatever reason, this analogy has always made it easier for me to visualize, like, kind of, because that elephant is this big old beast, that just it's big. It does what it wants to do. Like, you cannot tell an elephant. We can't, as a human, tell an elephant what to do. It'll be like, what are you talking about, man? Like, like, you better like stab me and kill me, and like, and shoot me like, 50 times if you want me to like stop doing whatever I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? And like an elephant, like every time you go in front of an elephant, I don't know if you ever go to like a zoo or anything like that, but like anytime that I'm ever, in front of an actual living elephant, just the sheer magnitude of, like, when you see that damn thing and you're just like, shit, you're like, how would I, like, get that thing to do anything, like, what I mean?
Mhm.
And like that visual for me, when I think of an elephant, I'm like, it is gonna do what it's gonna do, now, like,
Yeah.
now, but elephants are smart, and they can be, tamed, and
But the
you can
thing is, you have to
operate.
speak the right language.
Right, exactly, right.
Elephant whisperer.
Right,
You can't really, like I said, you can't talk to an elephant as if you talk to another person.
exactly.
It doesn't
You
know what
gotta
you're
listen
saying.
very closely, and then you gotta figure it out, and then you gotta work together to figure out, what that elephant's trying to say, and make sure
I
that you
mean,
guys are both going in the right direction.
it's very, I guess it's very fitting in the way we think of the elephant as a rider, very similar to what we see as the system 1 and system 2, because
Mhm.
the elephant and the rider is very, I guess, personify object, right? Like, because the thing is, the rider in itself has many characteristics that is given by the
Mhm.
sheer fact that it is a rider, right?
Right.
When I say this is a rider, well, tell me about the rider. Well, a rider is a person who can think, who has free will, who has control. And then you would say, well, whenever I say, well, think about system 2. Well, there's nothing comes to mind when you say, well, tell me about system 2.
Right.
It's only you can only tell me what I told you what system 2 does.
Right.
You can't tell me what. That's why whenever we have the elephant and rider, because there are more of the characteristic of the rider inherent to that rider and elephant that fits the concept of system 1 and system 2, because
Right.
we know about elephant, how big it is compared to the rider, right?
Right.
And how it does things that can be tame and cannot be tamed. But when you talk about system 1, system 2, can you tell me the relative size of system 1 versus system 2?
I mean,
Nothing comes to mind
it's
unless
it's
I
it's a
tell
lot.
you.
It's a lot to a little, right? Like, I mean,
Because the thing is, system
yeah.
1 is just a label that's foreign to it, which is basically
Right.
put a label on it.
Right.
But in this scenario, we basically borrow an existing knowledge, existing concept to represent,
Well,
to
we can
label
visualize it. We
something.
think in pictures. We think in pictures. We think in
Right, because
stories.
like the thing
Like,
is, when I ask you about an elephant, right? There's so much you can pinpoint on elephant. Well, the elephant
they're
has
huge.
tusks. It has tusks, right?
Right.
It has this snout. It has this ears, and it's huge. And you have the rider. You can visualize. You have a very direct connection. Your brain is actually engaged in that picture. But
Right.
when I told you about system 1, system 2, all you know about that foreign label is whatever I tell you, and even then, it doesn't stick. So your brain can't hold on to it. It can't hold on to that image.
I mean,
There's
you
no
remember?
image to hold on to.
Do you remember the book we just recently did, The Elephant Whisperer? The
Mm-hmm.
book, the actual book, The Elephant Whisperer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so, like, to figure out how to get elephants to cooperate with you is you have to really think about it. I mean, you have to really, really slowly approach it. You have to understand their world. You have to understand everything that they're experiencing, thinking, feeling, going through all this stuff. For a human being to get an elephant to do anything that you wanted it to do, not necessarily saying that you're like manipulating it, but to cooperate with that elephant, like, like they give no fucks about cooperating with a human being, unless you can really understand them. You know what I mean? Because they're like, what am I going to cooperate with you for? Like, what can you do for me. You know what I mean? I'm
Mhm.
I'm 12,000 pounds, can fling trees around, I can talk 400, miles away through my grumbles, you know what I mean? I'm a pretty fucking smart thing, you know what I mean? Like, and like and then they got this little tiny human being next to them and they're like like, and they're going, as a human being, you're like, you have to problem solve that elephant. Like, I mean, really, that's the truth of the matter. Is like, you can't manhandle it. You can't just force it to do stuff. Like, it's gonna do what it's gonna do unless you start to really, really, really think about what does that elephant need right now? What does it need to hear, and why does it need to hear for you to get them to cooperate with you to do anything? Which is exactly what I'm talking about with like this tennis example. Like my elephant was like throwing a temper tantrum, and I was like, "Why are you throwing a temper tantrum? Like, what happened? We were having fun. We were doing things that I thought we loved, and all of a sudden now you're throwing a fucking temper tantrum, elephant. Like, and I'm sitting there going, I got to really think about this one. You know what I mean? Like, all right,
Say,
all right,
why? There's something spooks you, huh?
right, right, yeah. Like, what?
Right. So what is it that it is something there that I need to be paying attention to? So it's a signal to the writer to
Right,
pay attention and figure out what's the root cause of this book. Because you can't force elephant to do anything.
right.
You
Well,
cannot force elephant. Like I say, if you're in that remorse state, you cannot tell yourself, don't feel remorse. It's not possible.
exactly.
I would say, hey, I'm spooked. I'm scared. I'm
Hey,
gonna behave instinctively what I should be doing. There's nothing you can do to say, hey, don't be spooked.
nothing.
It's just
There's
one of those
nothing.
things.
Like, I mean, actually, that book, The Elephant Whisperer, was really interesting because those elephants that they inherited, like
Mm-hmm.
they were spooked. Like they kept breaking out of the reason why they were given to him is they kept breaking out of their containment. And
Mm-hmm.
the containment they were breaking out of was electric wired fence. Like they figured out how to turn off the wiring, break down the poles, and they kept breaking it over and over and over again. And it was costing the other owner a fortune, and they were going on the loose and causing a wreck, and they were
Mm-hmm.
doing all this stuff for a reason, right? Like, but that's why when the elephant whisperer, the guy, when he got him, like he had to literally go make amends with the matriarch of the family. He had to go build trust with them. He had to go understand what all happened and why she's so protective of all these people because one of them got killed, by one of these fucking poachers. That was why they kept trying to break out of these. Like he had to literally like piece it all together and think through like, okay, now that I understand where you guys are coming from, we could work through this. Do you want to work through this? And then eventually got him to agree to him, and then they ended up living a great life together and wrote a book about it, I mean, but like this is I can't give you a better example than that of exactly what we're talking about. Like
Mm-hmm.
they will destroy shit. They will flee, they will run, and and when I say they, you will you will have these crazy emotions that are going on inside of you, whether good or bad. We just talked about this yesterday with the poker playing thing, right? Like in a
Mm-hmm.
weird way, like my elephant was in hog heaven, a lot of times when I was doing that, but also, and so for some reason, felt like shit at the same time too. And like I couldn't figure that out. Like that is why I stopped playing poker. I didn't know it now. I didn't know it then. I know it now as we're talking about this stuff. Like, and we
Mm-hmm.
and I can understand that. But for whatever reason, it brought out every negative emotion in me and it brought out every positive emotion. And it was confusing as hell. Like, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It's like, well, I really like this, but I really feel awful after every time that I perform this. You know what I mean? And I couldn't reconcile those two things. So
That
like
means that some of the core values is being satisfied, and some core value that is being violated.
right,
You gotta feel those, and so that means you have to figure out what to do in between because maybe having that combo isn't the right thing. You know what I mean? But that's what
exactly.
I'm saying is, having the elephant and the rider, it is so much more impactful in terms of our leverage of the concept of the elephant and the rider. It has so much more than just system one, system two, and the relationship between the two. That's why I think this book, even though it's has less of a, I guess, facts and evidence than thinking fast and slow, but it has more of a connection
Mm-hmm.
between what we see and how we can extrapolate the simple, because the elephant is the symbol of system one, the this powerful subconscious. of your brain, and it's just in the writer is, you know, the conscious portion of it, and the smaller part of your brain, because it doesn't have as much of a capacity to think as a system one, the subconscious. Subconscious does it so fast. It's super fast, it's faster than the supercomputers. And so
Right.
I think having this book, a lot of times, you know, it's the same concept, but it allows us to elevate from the Beaver must dam level of explanation to the second level, which is, you
Right.
know,
Right.
the rider and elephant whisperer. I think, you know, this book is very, very impactful in terms of bridging our understanding
Hmm?
of our instinct or values that we're given when we were born, the certain set of genes that we need to express, and that kind of give us more, I guess, directions in terms of what we should do for ourselves, for our lives. And I
Right.
think that's the most I guess impactful thing you can do is, you know, having the knowledge, but having the knowledge that can be applicable
Right.
is the best thing.
It's the profoundly simple idea of all of this whole entire journey is focus on your values and do your best to bring those bring them to life through your actions. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
and like that's it. Like that is it's focus on your elephant. Change that. You could extrapolate that out and say focus on your elephant and do your best to make sure that you put your elephant in situations where it can thrive. You know, like in like I mean that it's the same concept, but like we're just changing the words around. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to focus on your elephant. Like I mean, like that you have to spend time, you have to think, you have to understand it. You have to be 100% in tune with your elephant at all times in life. Otherwise, you know, that's the profoundly simple concept of all this stuff. Like you have to know your elephant, like inside and out, focus on your elephant, i.e. your values. Sorry, focus on your elephant and you will find your values together, and then that's your common language you can communicate with your
Mm-hmm.
values. You know, that's why the profoundly simple idea is focus on your values. Like it's the language that your writer can speak
It's
to your elephant.
it's the most implementable actions,
Right.
because if you talk about system one, system two, it's hard to implement, because like, okay, I know what it is, but how do I even go about trying to train system two? I mean, you can't. But
I
if
don't
you
think you
think of,
can. I mean, it's like I mean, like how are you supposed to know when you're being, primed? Like that's the whole point of priming. You're like you either do it to somebody or you do it to or you're having it done to you if
Mhm.
it's happening. How are you supposed to know? You're not supposed to know you're being primed. Like nobody goes, oh yeah, I was just primed right there. Like I mean, like like I mean, if you
But
can do
I think if you understand this concept well, you will recognize it. Because remember one time you mentioned to me about the guy who watched enough tennis that will be able to predict, like, hey, he's gonna fault on this serve or whatever,
yeah,
right? He
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he has been trained, his elephant has been trained, and he can
Mhm.
see it with a certain slightest of different whatever he sees, the input that he sees, he's going to predict the ability to say, well, he's going to fault this one or fault that one or whatever. And so I think having the ability to train your elephant, having to train your system too, it's possible. It's just about, like I said, you fear the guy who practiced one kick 1,000 times.
Right. What you were just talking about was in this book, Blink, The Power of
Mhm.
Thinking Without Thinking. This is this
Right.
is this
This
is
is the
about being
elephant
an
train.
elephant. Yeah, this is no, it's not even a training. No, this is just a book about saying, hey, this is how powerful your elephant is. Like there is no like how to fix all this. Like it's just like this is a book about like this is how it works. Like I mean, you do more things in a blink of an eye that you have no idea what's going on. Like this is your elephant. Like this whole book, like you just said, system one, system two. There's so many books we've read on this journey. Nudge, I mean, like happiness hypothesis,
I mean,
system one, system two,
you're talking about the book, the Atomic Habits. It's the
atomic habits.
same thing,
Right.
right? Because you think about it, right? Because if we saying, look, we have this elephant in the rider, you can actually train yourself to become an elephant whisperer. And once you become an elephant whisperer, you can be an elephant trainer. Elephant trainer, you can train your elephant to blink, which is, to the power of thinking while thinking, right? I'm borrowing this concept. So think about it. You have to understand that elephant is this humongous thing, right? So if you have a dog, for example, how do you train a dog?
Slowly over time, and you listen to it, and you see what it does, and
No.
hey, what?
So the thing is, this is how you train a dog. Okay, I don't know, I don't train dogs, but I'm just going to try and explain my transition from being a dog trainer to an elephant trainer. So a
Right,
dog trainer, what you do is, let's say you wanted to sit. What do? You hold up the piece of treat because he wants a treat, right?
right,
You have to give him something he wants. You hold it up so that you lift the piece of treat all onto his nose and lift it all the way up until he in the sitting position. You see what I'm saying? So I
right,
am using what he wants to trying to get him to sit without he knowing he's sitting,
right.
right? And so as a dog trainer, you have to use something that he wants to allow him to transition into a position that you want to say sit, and then you label that sit, and you keep doing that until,
Yeah,
but you have to make sure you can't just say sit and then trying to force him to sit down and trying to do it 100 times, 1,000 times. I guarantee you he doesn't know,
right,
right? But if you put the piece of treat up into his nose and you put him up until because he has to put his nose following your treat. He's gonna put his nose up. His butt has to go down.
right.
And then once he's in the position, you label sit, right? So that's how you train basic training of a dog. I mean, anybody knows that. Okay.
Yeah,
So you think about a dog, for you and a dog is much smaller than you. You can actually force a dog, or if he does something bad, you can smack it, right? And teach them that way. But I'm going to transition to the elephant trainer. You cannot actually spank the elephant and say, "Hey, no,
yeah,
you can't do that." So the
right.
only way for you to train an elephant is to figure out what he wants and
Yeah,
use that as a transition
yeah. It's a good
to
point.
make him say, "Hey, okay, you do this," and then you label it, and eventually you do that enough time, he's gonna recognize it, and he's gonna see the things that you want, and basically you can command and say, "Hey, okay," and you can communicate with the elephant using these labels that you and the elephant has
So I
labeled.
think you just had a truism there. I'm gonna
Don't
document it
spank
for
the
you.
elephant.
Yeah, well, I do like that one. But the but I was gonna say, it's you train your elephant with values.
Right. You have to train your elephant with the value it knows. You cannot introduce something foreign to it. You have to transition it. So you have to imagine having your elephant, right? So that means that your system, your system one, your subconscious, your instinct can be trained per the rider, per the system one. So that
Right.
means that you can train it. So a perfect example of this is the book Atomic Habits. Atomic Habit is essentially borrowing a habit you already had to piggyback to get you new habits. This is
Right.
exactly how you train your subconscious. This is exactly how you train an elephant. But the thing is, when you train an elephant who is like 5 times bigger than you can actually use force. You have to use the value that
Right.
it holds already, and use that value to transition. Same thing with your habit, right? Your subconscious. You cannot spank it. You can say, "Hey," smack it and say, "Hey, you can't do this," right? It doesn't understand you. I mean, because it's so big and it's so powerful, it doesn't understand what you're saying. You can't spank it, so you have to use the value. That's why, like I said, the atomic habit is actually a practical example of how to train your subconscious, how to train your quote unquote elephant.
Except that the whole Atomic Habits book is missing, like, the whole idea of purpose. Of
Right,
of
but
of why you do it. But yes, it tactically
but it,
speaking,
it
yes,
attaches it
yeah, yeah,
attaches to the concept of
yeah, yeah.
borrowing an
Tactically,
existing concept that it
right,
knows. Like, so in the atomic habit, it borrows your habits. Okay.
right.
But I'm saying is using the same concept in the environment of the subconscious. The subconscious has a certain instinct already. It has already an innate instinct. Use that instinct to piggyback, to transition over to new habits, to new core values, to the new integrity, to new whatever that you think is part of you need to be, right? So
I think
basically, the atomic habit is an example of how to put into practice, how to train this subconscious, this ultimate submerged iceberg.
yeah, I love it. I think that's a great place to stop. I was gonna say I just wrote you a Slack message saying we should write a book called How to Train Your Elephant. You know, and we
Yeah,
can
I think so.
put all this together a document of how to train your elephant. You know, but no, I love that. All right, fun conversation as always. Any final thoughts?
Don't expect it.
Don't spank your elephant. Yeah, that's funny.
It doesn't work.
So that's hilarious. The question we can leave for everybody is what activities naturally make you have that, give you that disgusting feeling, and what values are they guiding you toward? You know, listen to your elephant is basically what we're trying to say is, you know, what's your elephant telling you? Listen to it. Listen to your damn elephant, and then figure it out, and then use it, communicate with it, and then train it. You know,
Right.
Yeah. Find that common language. Common language is values, and then use those values to train it. You know, it's like the treats, like True saying for a dog. All right, love it. That's a great way to. That's a good lesson for the night. Good reminder. And I feel purged. All right,
It's a good life lesson. I think, you know, because this is what I do. Is I'm constantly trying to actually trying to reprogram my subconscious, and that elephant and the rider fits perfectly into this paradigm.
Agreed. Yeah, I love it. It's a great book. That's why it's a great book. It's why one of the top 5 favorites. So, thanks everybody for joining, and we will see you all on Monday.
Monday sounds good. Good night.